I'm delighted to be on stage this afternoon with a wonderful panel of experts in our industry. Let me begin by introducing from my left Giles Palmer, Chief Executive Officer of Brandwatch, the well-known social listening, data and analytics company. To his left, Christophe Folschette, the partner and founder at Talkwalker, also one of the leading players in social and digital insights and data. Next to him, Baptiste Tougeron, head of marketing mix models at Google Southern Europe. And last but not least, Susanne Sturton, global communications measurement manager at Adobe Systems. So welcome, everybody. We're going to begin by asking each of our respected panelists to begin by quickly describing how they manage their data, whether it's directed internally or externally, and ultimately what the purpose of that data program and insights program is all about. So, Susanne, if we can start with you,
Sure.
Please go ahead.
Sure. So what I'm going to talk about is analysis of Adobe's communication data and how we use that analysis to impact the business. So there are three particular data analytics programs I was going to reference in this discussion. The first is more at a macro level, and that is Adobe's Marketing Return on Investment Econometric Modeling Program, which is not a program that's run by communications. So I sit in the communications team. So our colleagues in the Marketing Insights team run that program. But comms data is shared with that team. So when I say comms data, I'm talking about PR data and social data. Because I know in some organizations, social doesn't actually sit in comms, but it does within Adobe. So that's a program that I'll be talking about and showing how comms data feeds in there. The second program is what my colleague Jen, who's here in the audience, shared yesterday in her keynote. And that is how we have taken the AMEC framework and designed a new Adobe Comms measurement framework based on that model, and coined it Project Moto, moving from outputs to outcomes. And it was quite interesting for Adobe because we internally had a little bit of wrangling in terms of, well, why do we need our own comms measurement framework? You know, we've got a whole team in Marketing Insights, can't they do it? So that was kind of interesting, just internally getting to the point where we explain to our stakeholders why, in fact, it's not going to give us everything that we need, just relying on marketing. And then finally, I was going to touch on the whole area of PR data warehousing and analysis, which is something that's very close to my heart and I've been involved in for many, many years with Adobe. Some of our internal stakeholders, you mentioned PR data warehousing, and they just run a mile and go, oh my God, that's just way too deep. So we have that challenge in terms of trying to bring our stakeholders along with us. So there were the three areas that I was going to touch on. And bring insights based on those three particular programs.
Thank you. We look forward to that. Baptiste?
Yes. So, hello, everybody. At Google, I'm going to talk about holistic measurement of marketing effectiveness. And previously at Google, we were doing our own measurement because we had great engineers that have access to great tools and amazing algorithms. And we were telling to our clients that our platform were performing very well, and they were not trusting us. I wonder why. So that's how we started to think that we had to change a little bit our mindset and to start to find out how we could have external measurement with a more neutral point of view in order to have a clear vision of the impact of every media on the business of our clients. So to do so, we launched a program 2 years ago, which is called the Marketing Mix Modeling Program. I won't go into detail about what is marketing mix modeling. I hope you've heard about it. Basically, is to measure impact of marketing actions on sales, based on econometrics, which is a statistic approach. So to do so, through this program, we started to partner with vendors who are developing models So like Nielsen, Econometrics, Conento here in Spain, data to decision, market share, almost all of them, with three pillars, three very important pillars. The first one was to start to feed them with high quality data, because we realized that most of the time those vendors were only having access to data from the media agency, and sometimes it was not very accurate. So we said, okay, if we want to have a better measurement, we need to provide higher quality data. So we became data providers at, let's say, aggregated level. Here we are not talking about individual information. It's just aggregated level of media investment of our clients, providing very detailed information on format, impressions, clicks, budget, but also regions, device, targeting objective, and so on. So that was the first step. The second pillar was to actually train them and educate them, because we also realized that even if we provide a high quality data, they needed to understand better what they are talking about. And so that's a huge part of all the data-driven strategy. Even if you have access to lots of data, you need to really deeply understand what you have in your hands to create better insights. So through the program, we are educating and training vendors to better understand our data and to better understand our format.
So a partnership model to spread that measurement methodology, that culture, that results towards your vendors and your clientele.
Exactly.
Thank you. Christophe.
Yeah, so from our side, I wanted to touch base a little bit on what we do and how we see advanced analytics, and then really how we're creating an impact for our customers. So it's a little bit of a different view. So what we do is really data. So we collect data, which is social data, which is news data, which is offline, broadcast, print, but which goes as well broader, like web analytics data, which is as well voice of customer data, point of sale data. All of that goes into an engine, and then we're applying different types of algorithm on top of that, which is text analytics, which is visual analytics, which is audience intelligence and location analysis. And obviously there comes the whole aspect of AI into that. So AI plays an important game at this stage. And then we take this analytics and derive insights. So insights on that part is then topic discovery. It's a matter of identifying influencers. It's a matter of understanding audiences and then playing this out through applications. So applications will be then really the applications used by our customers in order to afterwards create an impact, which is brand protection, reputation management, measurement from a PR and from a social, but as well from a brand health point of view. And then as well everything that is ready more for the brand promotion and campaign recommendations. And I think the business impact, how we see this is really by bringing the owned, earned, paid together, which is obviously a big challenge, and then seeing what is the impact on the brand, what is the impact on digital, so really finding the correlations between the PR and the digital, but then as well correlating this back to the business, so really a revenue number that you can have, that you can see then in the end.
Okay, so we're going to find out how you do that in a minute. Giles.
We would say, or I would say that we're a very data-orientated company. It was founded basically by engineers, and I trained as an accountant when I was in my 20s, and I'm still a shit accountant even now. But so we're very data-driven, and historically, when we've looked at our business, we've looked at the sort of metrics that I think most business kind of management look at, which is
your Brandwatch, not your clients.
Yeah, but I think this applies to I think this is the way that businesses on the whole look at themselves. They start with their P&L and their numbers, and they start looking at their performance and versus budget and all of that kind of stuff. And then the financial guys start doing some modeling around the actual performance of the numbers and the ratios and all of that kind of stuff. And you start saying, yeah, well, we're all, we're there or thereabouts on budget, or we're, the ratio of spend to new business is this, and so you play around with the levers based on analysis of the data. It's normal stuff. Everybody does it. About a year ago, as a result of a conversation I had with somebody, they said, well, Giles, you're looking at lagging indicators there. This is all in the past. Or every piece of data you're looking at is in the past. So you're doing analysis on stuff that's already happened. And even if you get really interesting analytics on this data, what are you going to do about it? So let's take, say, churn. So for a SaaS business, churn is an important metric. We want to get churn down by, say, 10% over the course of a year, or whatever the target is. What do you do in order to do that? And what we were having was discussions at an exec level and at a product level where nobody quite knew what we were talking about. Because it's like, okay, what do you mean by churn? Are we talking about customer health? Are we selling to the right people? Are we onboarding them properly? Are we is the engineering function listening to the customer success teams? So you ended up going off into these little rabbit warrens, and then we started looking at leading indicators, and these are indicators that you can usually do more with. So for us, it's things like customer usage. How can we get customers or encourage customers in the first 3 months of using the product to use it more productively? How can we make sure that they're educated, and so on and so forth. And we want to go from this usage number to this usage number. Or another leading indicator might be reputation of the company. So you look at how people are rating our products online, how people are talking about the company, how many shares we get from our content, and overall reputation data, and bring that together. And we want to improve this data to do this. So we've moved much more towards leading indicators, and now starting to do more analytics and analysis on those. And that ends up, I think, being more useful inside the company because it leads to actions, clearer actions than lagging indicators.
Okay. Well, I mean, wonderful contributions. Everything I've just heard is very strategic in nature, very technology-driven. I'd like to try and turn the conversation into a more practical direction. So we've heard from each of you on what you're doing and who your stakeholders are. Can we please have an example on how you're actually delivering value? Simplify it for the audience. What does that value actually look like? Who is benefiting from it? And how is that changing the business?
So I would start with that first program I mentioned, Adobe's Marketing Return on Investment program, where they take our PR and social data. That team, insights that have come from that team show that customers that are touched by multiple marketing channels are 38% more likely to convert. So that's why the program is there, because they understand they need to take a look at the spend for each marketing channel, and then determine what the revenue was for each channel, and see how should we reallocate our budget for the following quarter to bring about the maximum return on investment. So if we take a look back at the first quarter of this year, where our comms team have looked at the analysis, that broad cross-marketing analysis, and look for the key takeaways when it comes to the effectiveness of PR and social. It's very interesting. For our Experience Cloud business, digital marketing business, that insight showed that, in fact, PR delivered the greatest return on investment, followed by social. And our other business, Creative Cloud, for example, it shows that events, in fact, and this is a global study, so the data has been taken from all of our key markets across all marketing channels. So events, in fact, showed to be the greatest return on investment. So I think the impact is that you can take a look at that and see, okay, I mentioned Creative Cloud, PR is number 2, social is number 5. How do we then reallocate budget to get a better return? So that is a tangible example of how the analysis of comms data can help the business and drive a better return on investment for marketing spend.
It's a fascinating takeaway that PR has the biggest impact towards conversion. I'd be curious to know, I'm sure many of the number crunchers and insights people in the room would want to know, How did you figure that out? So you're getting your data in.
Yeah.
You've got your marketing spend, your social, organic and paid, your PR and comms activity.
Yeah.
How did you manage to bring that PR element out of that mix?
So you have to take a look at the spend that goes in is the customer-facing spend. So what you take out of that, so it's a bit tricky when it comes to PR, and we've been trying to dig into this to get more accurate reflection when it comes to spend on PR. So what we have determined is that you take out agency fees. So you ask the agency, so what actually are we spending on our media outreach, customer facing when it comes to PR spend? And so we also remove and take out of that spend content production.
Right.
So, the MCI team, the Marketing Customer Insights team, came up with the formula to get at those insights. It's not something that we fully understand. Jen will probably understand it a lot better than I would. In fact, how they, what is the formula? What is the calculation? We just kind of trust the data. We're the internal client for our Marketing Insights team. We just give them the data and they somehow work their magic.
But you got the result which
exactly.
you wanted, and
yeah.
I'm assuming you have a bigger budget going into 2018.
Well, of course, it does help, because then we persuade the team to give us more comms budget, absolutely, yeah.
Great, wonderful.
And when the results are good, of course, why question it? If they're not so good, we do dig in as well.
So, a wonderful example of internal measurement and the impact that you're having. Christophe, if we can look at the external part and how you are impacting the business and the outcome on the client side.
Sure. I can share an example from a customer who working with a luxury shoe producer, and they are very online driven. Let's say like that. And they have been launching a new shoe. Obviously, they have the whole campaign and everything around. So they're launching it on different channels. They're launching it obviously through their website, so more important, their blog, which is well visited. They're launching it through different social channel. They have been putting in obviously as well ads on the display side and on the social side, and they have been heavily working with influencers. Across Europe, it was mainly. And what was important for them is, first of all, what are the right KPIs that they need in order to afterwards take a decision. Was it successful? Was it a success, or was it not a success? And this already wasn't easy. And what we have been doing with them is really applying, let's say, a measurement framework. And as I said before, it's really brand, digital, and business impact on the brand side. So here it's a matter more of having a comparable one campaign against another in order to see if it was better or worse. So it's a matter of obviously then awareness, it's a matter of share of voice, but it's a matter of as well reputation drivers. So is it changing something? And then on the digital side, they have been plugging that into their web analytics. So they have been plugging their web analytics. So they have been seeing directly what channel was driving actually traffic to their website, which is the shop. Actually, and so there they saw then specifically obviously the traffic that is coming in, and through the funnel on web analytics they have been able to then find out the conversions that are actually happening, that are driving obviously then afterwards you have the business impact, which are really the sales numbers that you can get out of that. And in parallel they have been tracking as well SEO. So they have been seeing as well, but what is the impact of this campaign on our SEO results? Are they going up? Are they going down? Or what is the impact in general?
So what does the client actually look at? You're talking about a measurement framework. You're talking about comparing one campaign to another campaign. You're looking at traffic. What does your client actually see in practical terms when you're delivering to them?
Sure. So what we provide to them is a dashboard. And this dashboard is obviously then visuals that help them to take the right decision. We don't take the decision for them, but then it would be like a partner that would be involved in order to take the decision together with them, for example, or in this case, they have all resources internally in order to take the right decisions.
So dashboards are not dead. Would you agree with that, Giles?
Yeah, I would. We did something similar for EA games for launches around their games, where they had all of the period leading up to the launch and building the buzz around the game was directly correlated to the sales in week 1 afterwards. Sales from week 2 and beyond, there are other factors like whether the game's any good. And also, when they release downloadable content that people can download and use in the game. And they had exactly the same thing, like one campaign this year versus last year, because they tend to be annual releases. And then some big games, they put an enormous amount of paid media alongside it, and they try and triage that. Okay, this was we put less paid media alongside this one, more here, and then compare the two and try to get a difference and get an ROI on the paid. Right. Where you can tie the social or the online to actual commerce or sales, then it's fantastic. But that's not always the case, certainly not for B2B. But in terms of dashboards not dead, 100%. What we've done now across our organization, we've got another product, I won't kind of do the pitch, but what it does is kind of gives you the ability to put data on big screens around an organization and control them remotely. So on the sales floor, we've got all the sales numbers by salespeople kind of rotating around. Right. It's a little bit competitive, but it's very visible. And on the engineering floor, we have product stats and all sorts of other stuff. So we've got this kind of internal broadcast system, which is going off all around the organization. Kind of not really like dashboards, but a little bit like, they look like dashboards, but rather than being sort of passive, they're active. So we've got somebody internally who is the internal broadcast manager deciding on what goes on each screen. So we don't change them that often, but it's a way of having the analytics, the results, the data kind of alive within the organization a little bit, and that does change behavior. And
your team are looking at forward-looking data the way you described before?
Both. I mean, so the sales data is lagging on the whole. So it's record keeping. Who's doing well this quarter? Sure. How they're doing against plan. What's the league table looking like? And then at the exec level, we talk about leading indicators way more. So what is it that we're doing that we're expecting to drive pipeline down the road, which will then have a knock-on effect to sales and conversions? Right. And what does product usage look like? And what are we expecting that to do to churn over the course of the next? So we have two different ways of looking at the data.
Would you say it's made a material positive difference to your team?
Yeah, I mean, our biggest challenge, honestly, has been getting everybody to agree on what numbers mean what. Like, that's been so goddamn frustrating, and I know it's really hard. I mean, I remember at AMEC, like 4 years ago, there was a question or a discussion around what is a mention? What is an online mention? What about in a forum? If you're mentioned 5 times, is that 5 mentions, or is that so? It's really hard with online text, but even with monthly recurring revenue. What if somebody does a 3-month trial? Is that monthly recurring revenue? Probably not. What about 6 months? When does it become recurring? And so having decisions that are clear and everybody understands them, then that drives, then when we have a conversation and you and I talk about a number, we understand each other, and then we take action.
So it goes to show with all of our technology, all of the data, at the end of the day, being able to extract PR performing better than other disciplines, improving performance of your team, without good methodology, the technology will not work. How does Google deal with methodology?
So methodology is actually owned by the vendors we are working with. So we don't have any implication on that. To be able to be a certified partners, we kind of check a little bit the way of working they have, but we don't have access to their models or to their algorithm. It's fully owned by providers, and that is why the marketing mix modeling process at Google is very interesting and collaborative, because we rely on an external partners that will put everybody agree around the table. So
who would an external partner be? Would that be like an agency, a digital agency?
It's some kind of research institute, let's call it like that, like a Nielsen, as I mentioned, or Data to Decision, Market Share. There are lots of them. And the fact that to have this neutral partner handling all that measurement helps the company to also sit around the table, all the partners that are involved in this kind of measurement, which are PR, marketing, media, but also trade marketing, supply chains sometimes, because within those models, we are able to include so many different variables that are actually affecting the business, that they have to see altogether the results and to understand the synergies, because nowadays you cannot have a big premium marketing communication and have on the other side the trade marketing lowering the price to reach their objectives. They have to work together to find the most effective synergies. So once you have everybody around the table and you have a neutral partner that is actually talking about effectiveness of every marketing actions, it helps a lot to create a clear communication and to define better the strategies on the client side.
Okay.
And on our side, the benefit is that if the clients agree, they share results with us, and we are able to prove that our media are actually effective. And thanks to that, we are building some nice case studies, and it's also a way for us to communicate about the effectiveness of our media.
So you've got your partners, they're feeding into the Google marketing mix model.
Yeah.
Describe what comes out at the end of that model and how it makes an impact within Google.
So for us, exactly, it's more an impact of communication because, as I told you, it's not a marketing mix model from Google. It's a program working with partners who are developing it.
Okay.
And the impact it has for us, it's on the client side, it's helped us to some kind of crack a little bit some budget opportunity we could have, because if we see that TV is highly saturated, but YouTube has a lot of opportunity to grow, it's a way also to say, okay, next year, let's try a different level of investment on the platform.
Okay.
And so it helps to grow our direct clients, but it's also thanks to the case study we are building and publishing on Think with Google, we are able also to promote our platform to the rest of the client and the rest of the industry.
So a lot like with Adobe, you're finding guidance on where to put your money, where to target, which channel will work most effectively. And I'm hearing a common theme among everybody: manage your budget, manage the money, look forward, lagging indicators. But let's take a few qualitative metrics. Let's talk about reputation. Okay, let's forget the money for a minute, although they are clearly tied. How do you measure your reputation?
Measurement and reputation within Adobe is in fact something that our marketing insights team are driving. It was something comms owned. So
now I can't let you get away with it.
No,
right?
no. It's really interesting actually.
Give me what you want.
I think a lot of big companies like Adobe, we go through this internal wrangling with your partners in marketing and where should things sit. Sure. And in fact, our corporate reputation measurement program, that was a program set up by comms, and it was determined then at some point that in fact it sits better in our marketing insights team, so they took it over about a year ago. So effectively it's 2 waves, twice a year we go out and basically do some primary research on all of our audiences in terms of shifts in awareness and brand reputation and the drivers of influence and so on and so forth. And we do ensure that there are PR-related questions in that survey so that we can see, in fact, whether it is online content or broadcast or what is influencing the purchasing decision maker when it comes to exposure to content. Because
is there a risk in, I don't want to say outsourcing, but delegating or trusting your colleagues in your market insights function with, let's face it, PR stuff which they may not be experts in?
Yeah, well, I think there is good collaboration. So we do have the opportunity to, it's about a 50-page Word document, the questions that are actually used for the survey. And so we are invited to review the questions and contribute and ask for comms-related questions to be put into the survey. But a point I wanted to mention in relation to methodologies and real-time dashboards, if I could just come back to that for a minute. What we found within Adobe is that it's like chalk and cheese when it comes to PR and social. So you can't really say, well, in fact, this is one methodology that we use, because there's such a difference between structured, unstructured data, long-form, short-form data. So when it comes to social, for sure, real-time dashboards we use them, and they're tremendously insightful and valuable. What we found when it came to measurement of traditional media, they just don't work for Adobe. So, we
what
have
does?
A high level of curation of the data, ensuring that you have a consistent framework globally where everybody, like was mentioned, what's a mention, you need to have your framework totally nailed in terms of everybody understanding. This is what we want plugged into our model when it comes to measuring traditional media. So we're not there yet, but we are doing a lot of work to try and bring about consistency. We found that using dashboards, real-time dashboards for measurement of traditional media, it just didn't give us clean, reliable data, to be quite honest. So we work with a global measurement partner to take the data and work on it so that it gives us meaningful insights. Without that, we found it just wasn't going to work.
Thank you. One more question before we go to the audience. You talked a lot about brand and Talkwalker supporting your clientele with measuring brand performance. That's a very good example of how data analytics has an impact. Can you describe that in a bit more detail?
Sure. So brand performance, I would say what we do is providing proxies that help to take decisions. So we don't talk about return on invest, we talk about impact. And I think that's a huge difference between that, because a return on invest, you can do it when you have a dollar value written somewhere, when you see as well how many sales have been generated, and all of the rest you have to approximate and find proxies that over time give you a good indication and a good correlation as well on how it really is. Let's say like that, and then you can build, let's say, predictive stuff on top of that.
Let me challenge you on two things here. All right, it's like correlations and predictive stuff. Give me an idea of what the correlations are and what the predictive stuff are.
Sure. So from a correlation point of view, we talked about reputation. So obviously it's a matter of finding a reputation score over time, and does it have an impact on your sales?
Okay.
And then based on that,
reputation score, and you compare that with sales coming in.
Correct.
All right? Okay.
And then you can make it, obviously, that's a very simple one now. But obviously afterwards, it's a matter of finding other indicators in your whole customer journey, and then see where you have to pull the trigger in order to get the best possible result in the end.
Okay. And the prediction part?
Yeah, the prediction part is obviously, as you can only build a prediction part if you have a data set. So as you have all of those indicators that over time, it's a matter of finding and building a predictive model that says, okay, if I change that, okay, but what happens if I change X, what happens with Y, and then it gives me a result that.
Okay. And I mean, just out of curiosity, out of your clients and Giles, Baptiste, how many of your clients actually use predictive modeling? Just give me a rough percentage.
Top 10%.
Top 10%. Okay.
I would say so as well.
Okay. Internally at Google?
I would say a little bit more, because the marketing mix models is a methodology that is really installed in the marketing industry, in the media industry. So lots of them are using it to predict what should be the best scenario for my next campaign or my next quarter or my next year strategy. So it's not predictive, it's forecasting. And I think it's a little bit different, because when you forecast, it means that you accept that nothing drastically is going to change in your market. Predictive is much more complex and much powerful also, but more complex to design. Okay. So it's more forecasting some kind of short-term, mid-term effect of a small change in their marketing or media strategy.
On reputation, just briefly, reputation management and even measurement is distributed across the organization organically. It just happened that way. So customer reputation sits with customer success of product, and we get product NPS scores and usage data. Staff reputation is taken very seriously, and that kind of sits, I guess, with me and the head of product, the head of people. And then there's reputation outside the organization. And that kind of breaks down as well, an investment community, in the industry, and then more broadly, and there are different ways that we look at it. And there's no actual framework. We should probably do it. But it's interesting, the whole organization has a kind of view on it. So we have internal hashtags that the company uses for company events inside Brandwatch, for example. And you see that pop up, and that's a reputational thing, but it's an inside-out staff kind of managed thing. So it's been very interesting watching reputation management organically evolve inside the company. And I think it's partly because I take it very seriously. If we get a negative Glassdoor review, I'm really pissed off. I'm like, who the hell was this? And what did we do wrong? And what can we change? And that just pervades all the way through to product and marketing.
Well, you've always been the emotional type. So
I am
I'm not surprised,
rather emotional.
But you sound like you have a lot of individual metrics on reputation, on sales, but you're still trying to find a more consolidated and integrated approach.
Interestingly, I think PR is where we're absolutely weakest in terms of understanding how we do it, how we measure it. We've used agencies, we've got in-house PR. I don't think we've ever done it well. It's really interesting. We're great at writing our own content, but getting our content onto non-Brandwatch owned properties, really poor. So it's very interesting, slightly humiliating actually.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, let's open the floor for questions. If we can have the mics ready. Since no one is volunteering, I'm going to pick on my favorites. Professor McNamara, what's your take on the methodology part of our discussion? And just before you answer, you heard about Adobe. They have a group function which consolidates data and information, and Susanne and her team extract the PR element. You heard about partners and vendors supporting Baptiste at Google, but it seems like each vendor has their own methodology, tying into a broader vision and so on. So,
well, I think the key thing to understand is those are not necessarily methodologies, they're methods. And there's no one social science research method, there are many. We've heard about market mix modelling, and I think that's important because attribution is always the key thing. You've got to discover results, but then the question is, what's the causality? What caused the results? And in an age of integration, and we've heard all through this conference about integration, but then we keep coming back and saying, well, what did the PR do? Well, if you wanted to separate out advertising, paid media, or earned media, or owned media, you've got to do some sort of attribution modelling, market mix modelling. There are various ways to do it, or you can try and do surveys and ask people where they go for information, or you can do behaviour tracking like ethnography. So there is no... I think the industry's got to sort of wake up to the fact there is no one research methodology and no one research method. There are a range of them. Make sure it's a valid method, and I think all the things we've heard are perfectly valid methodologies, and if they're done well, they can produce results. And we can't have one method because every organisation's got different needs, different budgets, different market mixes, and so on. So I think it's nice to hear a range of methods searching out data that proves results in a particular situation.
And at Brandwatch, one thing we may want to consider, you don't need a one number or a single data point to tell you whether you're doing well or not. Multiple data points are perfectly fine.
One number's not going to tell you anything. It's a bit like asking somebody, how old are you? And then making a complete market assessment based on their age.
Right.
That's how stupid it is. We need multiple, and the best insights come from triangulation of data. As an academic, we never trust one piece of data.
Yeah.
It can be wrong. Stuff is wrong. People lie in surveys. All these sort of variables come into play. So the secret is gathering multiple data sets, triangulating them, studying them, and then you can get some more conclusive results when you've got multiple data sets.
Thank you.
I would agree completely with that, Jim. And I think the challenge for Adobe is as we've set up our new comms measurement framework and identified, okay, what are all the business impact measures and what data sets do we need to actually apply the AMEC framework? And we came up with about 20 different data sets that we knew and know exist within the organization, and we're going down through them one by one to try and get access to that data so that we can, like you say, triangulate and try and make sense of it. But it's a challenge. We're going, okay, where do we get all the app download data? Come on, somebody's got it. It's really tricky, when you have a big organization to actually get what you need to then get all those juicy insights.
I'd just quickly add that I talked earlier today about customer journey mapping, and one of the benefits of that approach is it identifies all the touch points. And you can substitute the word customer to patient, student, stakeholder, employee. It's their journey through your organisation. And we're finding in research that the average number of touch points for one transaction is 21. So they've seen a website, they've seen PR, independent review, peer review, they've seen a paid media, they've gone on to owned media, they've called a call centre. All of this happens, and then finally they buy a product or they subscribe, and then everyone claims credit.
Out of everything you've heard in the panel so far, what struck you most in how each of our colleagues is conducting their measurement?
You're asking me to be very selective. I think what I'm saying is these are all...
There is no one.
There is no one.
That is the answer. There is no one. We need to develop knowledge of multiple methods. It's a bit like saying to me as a researcher, what method would I prefer to use to solve your problem? I'm going to first come and listen to your problem, and then I'm going to select from a repertoire of social science, valid research methods, and data sources that will give me the answers and give you the answers.
Lovely, thank you. 2 questions on the right over here, Florian and then Asim.
I want to come back to something that Christophe Folschette said, that it's about impact and not ROIs. Do we need to get rid of ROIs completely because they all lead to currency numbers, and therefore we need to get rid of ROIs in order to get rid of AVEs, because we're sliding back into the AVE discussion? And if that is so, are impact points, or is impact something that is easily describable to a client who is not doing that all the time and who is not visiting congresses like these?
Christophe?
I think no, we should not get rid of return on invest, because return on invest, I think it's percentage, and 5% return on invest, that means something. It depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to marketing people spending money on Google Display, that's a return on invest on that, and that's a clear number, and you can evaluate that. But then if you're launching an influencer campaign, more on the earned side, it's difficult. It's difficult, and there it's a matter of finding proxies in it to see, okay, but how to get as close as possible to this return on invest. The goal is to have return on invest, right?
And yes, if I might, ROI is still important, because when you invest money, you want to know how much do you earn for that investment. But today, the complexity of the ecosystem of the brands is so high that you have also to take into account some variables that are not so quantifiable or monetizable, if I might say, and that's the hardest part, because you have so many direct impact from media, but also indirect impact. Like media will affect earned media activity or organic activity that will lead to some discussion on blogs and news on TV, and then it will be fueled again by paid. And so at the end, you are able to quantify the contribution of those actions on your business, but then you're not able to monetize it and to truly understand the ROI. So ROI is one measure, but you have also to be able to understand what are the different interactions between all the ecosystem to fully understand how you have to define your next strategy. And it's not always about money, but more about the right actions or the right touch points you want to activate.
Yeah.
Thank you. Asim?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Asim. I'm from Impact Research in India. Increasingly, we are learning from our clients and data experts that real-time dashboards, when put in front of business leaders, are often more harmful than useful. And I'm actually already converted, but I wanted to ask you, do you agree, and is it in some way going to impact how you're going to be building your products further?
Okay, well, tough question. Let's start with the Brandwatch.
On the whole, I think the opposite. I don't think that they're harmful, but it'd be interesting to understand in what circumstances they are saying that they're harmful.
Why don't we let Asim just explain what you define by, if you will, harm?
Yeah.
Even at this conference, we had Microsoft present yesterday how they moved away from real-time analysis to slow data. In fact, they use the word slow data. They said, now no more do we send out a quick report, which is giving real-time numbers flashing on the screen. Rather, we will give a researched, insightful report at the end of 30 days. Imagine. When I heard this for the first time from Microsoft, I was like, why? What are they saying? 30 days, they're going to wait till they present an analysis?
Is it an either or? Can you not do both? Or
I'm sorry?
Is it an either or? Can you not do both?
Okay, therefore my question is with respect to business leaders.
Right.
So when it comes to power users, people who are doing coding on a daily basis, maybe they need to see that.
Yeah.
But because on your websites, when I go to your websites, they talk about business leaders looking at real-time dashboards and tickers. And suddenly when we see our clients saying, no, we don't want that. We don't want our business leaders to see any of that. In fact, forget real-time, don't forget same day. I'm going to go back to my business leader after 30 days. Yesterday, we had a presentation by Microsoft wherein the same thing was presented, talked about, and the importance of that was highlighted.
So we're differentiating between your day-to-day user who may want quantitative real-time data as opposed to C-level or leadership people who may want something more considered.
I get it. So I'll be very quick. We work with a large bank in the US, and for them get it for the social and comms team, for them getting exposure of their work to senior level people was really important. So having a dashboard which is in the C-suite, which shows reputation and various other things, is really helpful for internal visibility in a very, very large company. If that then becomes something where the CEO is saying, oh, well, this happened today, and is, what the hell's going on there, or the numbers are too volatile, or whatever, then that could be a problem. So I think that's an interesting, but they're not there yet. We work with Unilever, and they have in their canteen real-time data coming through one of our products, and including images. And Vaseline is one of their products. And there were some not safe for work images that came into their entire canteen. Hashtag Vaseline. And so that was undesirable real-time data. But we had to put a not safe for work filter in. I think it does depend on where you are in the journey. For me, I think visibility of this stuff is more important than some potential downside consequences, but I think it depends.
Suzanne, on that, how do you report?
It's interesting because I would definitely say that when it comes to the C-suite, our executives, they don't want to see dashboards. They don't want to see numbers. And so it's quite clear that our brief as a comms measurement team is find us the insights, show us the impact. And so that's, of course, why I mentioned the cross-marketing return investment program, but it doesn't give us that granular data. It doesn't combine the art and the science. It doesn't go to each team and design a bespoke program that takes account of their business objectives, their comms objectives, their inputs, outputs, and so on. So, there's hard work involved, but we're clear, certainly our comms and marketing organization is clear that we want to be able to demonstrate impact. We're looking for meaningful, actionable insights. It's going to take investment. It's going to take time. However, I would say that our business units are still a bit hung up on numbers. So it's work in progress in terms of trying to, just at a simple level, explain to them how meaningless it is to try and monitor and measure every single piece of press content on their brand or their product globally. It's an infinite universe, and in fact, if anything, it just makes it so much more difficult actually to get any insight, because it's just, everybody's a publisher.
So, question to you and to you, Christophe. What example of a report to a senior level person in your organization has made a real impact? What kind of experience did you have where the boss said, that's exactly what I want?
I'd love to be sitting here in 12 months' time and being able to share that with you, because in fact, we're just about to move on to execution stage. Okay. We've done a lot of the research, and it's the change management internally is what we're focused on. But I certainly hope down the line that we'll be able to share those examples with you.
Okay, Christophe.
That's a tough question. You mean internally for us or
No,
for
to your
for
clients. A CEO, a chairman, whoever, saying that's exactly what I wanted.
So if you're at sea level, it's always about, I just can reiterate on the impact part, but it's as well understanding what are the proxies that are being used, because that can, I'm coming back to Giles' point as well there, it's a matter, it has to be well defined, because otherwise you're moving into very, very different directions. So on the sea level, what we see is everything related to issues and how are they evolving over time. That's something that is really very impactful and that people need to see. Then everything that is related to stock price. It is as well something that that they want to see, and as well how is the investor
correlating media coverage and sentiment with their stock price.
Yes.
And competitive analysis, in fact, I've just thinking of a report that, in fact, myself and Jen had to review for an hour with our colleagues in the US yesterday while here, so it was a little bit challenging trying to be here and deliver for our stakeholders. But I would say our executives want to know how are we doing, against our competitors. And so that, again, when I mentioned change management, internally, you've got to stop trying to boil the ocean and being so obsessed with your own coverage. You got to, let's just move towards a more qualitative program where we can start to actually analyze our competitors' media effectiveness as well as our own. And that's what executives want to see. They want to know, well, how did our competitor do? What drove, look at engagement data for social, the share gap between Adobe and its competitors, and why is that gap there? What are they doing? What kind of content are they actually getting a higher level of social engagement?
It really comes down to a pretty basic level. I mean, where are we? What's going on? How do we benchmark against our competition?
Absolutely, and we want to move it up a level as per the AMEC framework, but we are doing things that they are finding valuable.
Another thing is rankings. Number one, number two, number three.
In which terms?
In terms of visibility, specifically on the com side. From a social, it's sometimes, or even a lot of times, community growth. That's something that they care about, but across all channels, not just now one Twitter channel, for example. And then as well, what is the impact of issues on a brand, and as well as how are those issues impacting other brands?
Thank you. Other questions? Phil.
Thanks, Mazen. Phil from Newton Insight. Question for Baptiste. So Baptiste, Google is working with various research partners. Can you just explain a bit, what are you asking them to do? Are you giving them each a part of the same question, depending on their expertise, or are each of these partners, trying to give you a full methodology that may be complementary or sometimes may conflict with each other, and you then pick and choose what you think's best for Google? Actually,
for the good of the neutrality we are trying to have when we measure multi-channel activity, we let the client choose, because it's not just about having the best methodology, because most of them are working with similar algorithm. It's more about the trust you can have with that partner, because this partner will give you also the right recommendation for the next good decision you will have to make. So if there's no trust within the process, it's going to be useless. So we don't choose a partner. We have certified partners, but sometimes a client will come and say, hey, I want to work with this different partner. It's not certified by Google, but I want to work with him. So we have a discussion to understand the methodology, understand how they work, and if it fits with our own standards, then we can start working with them. And clients is happy, and we are happy, so that's a win-win relationship.
Yeah, and is there ever a temptation or a discussion within Google about creating a proprietary methodology of your own?
Not for marketing mix models. We are working a lot on attribution, which is normal because we have a huge ecosystem that is based on our own platforms. So that's logical to try to link the dots and try to provide to our clients some kind of better vision of the purchase funnel, for example, of their consumers. But for marketing mix model, there's no big challenge in terms of approach or methodology. The challenge is having the right consultants to understand the results and to build this trust relationship with clients. So there's no plans for now to work on that field.
Thank you.
In the remaining 5 minutes, we've talked a lot about technology, methodology, data, reporting. One thing we haven't talked about is people. And where do people fit into the mix when it comes to doing your measurement and implementing your research programs? And it's, I mean, you're all tech companies, effectively. Yeah. Google, Adobe, so.
If you don't mind, I'll take a slightly different, to answer the question, but not about research programs, about business change with data.
Sure.
So we've seen dramatic differences in outcome by changing sales commissions. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Like, you change the sales commission setup and you're going to get different behaviors. But dramatically different behaviors, way beyond anything that I would have expected. And what that's led to internally is much more conscious understanding and choices around what behaviors we want to drive, and therefore what numbers, often leading indicative numbers, we target, and then how those cascade down to individuals, departments, and so on. So if the biggest challenge that we've had is like, how do we consciously link up what we're tracking and rewarding, both financially and just with visibility, with the actual, with the actual.
So really internal measurement on changing behavior of your team.
It's powerful when you say, right, this is what we're going to focus on, and you swing everybody behind that. It's amazing what human beings can do, right? We can make huge improvements and huge shifts. So for me, it's consciously deciding this is the most important thing, or this is the cascade.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, an example I would give of combining the data and where people fit in would be when it comes to measuring an attribute like innovation. So how effectively has Adobe managed to convey itself as an innovator through our press coverage? So when it comes to the data, we would come up with a taxonomy of keywords that we feel, not just for Adobe, but again, it's important because if you want to do competitive analysis, you can't just be obsessing over your own specific campaigns and products and so on and so forth, and try and do it at a higher level. So you get your taxonomy of keywords and you run that through the data. You're now sure that you've got nice, clean, reliable data, which has also involved people. But when it comes to the analysis, we work with Prime Research, so their team will take a look at that data. And we find that sometimes as much as 30 or 40% of that content is actually not relevant. Because long-form content, average length of a piece of press coverage is 800 to 1,000 words. So the keywords were there, but when a human takes a closer look, and you can use proximity settings, but even still, we find you need humans to actually make sure that it's the right context. So we're not happy to just rely entirely on data for our insights.
Thank you. Baptiste, how do people come into the equation of measurement at Google?
Well, it's very important. Well, at Google, we talk about a lot of artificial intelligence, which the opposite could be human stupidity, but we don't want to look at that. That's not something we have to choose between artificial intelligence or human. It's a combination of both, and we have to find the ways how the machine, the tools, and the artificial intelligence are helping humans to take better decisions or to do stuff that are not so important, and so human can focus on insight, for example. So human is highly important in the process to have the right insight, but also to have the intelligence to better orientate the next strategy, based on the client's objective. And that's the machine cannot take into account everything because sometimes also you have some politics variable that you have to take into account within a company, and sometimes you don't know that. So it's all about really deeply understanding the business of the clients and their objective, and also, yes, driving the best insight for them to take better decisions.
Lovely, thank you. Well, I've had Barry pop in and point to the clock, which I see has 10 seconds left on it. So let me conclude by thanking each of our panelists for a wonderful discussion. Susanne mentioned how Adobe is using market mix modeling, helping find how PR has proven to be the most effective in that mix. Google using a partnership model to serve internal and external needs, very exciting. Talkwalker using all kinds of technology and AI to be able to look at brand and reputation. And the ever emotional Brandwatch, looking at all forms of internal metrics to upgrade the level of performance at their team. All examples of how data and analytics are making an impact both internally and externally at each of these businesses. Thank you for a great discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.